And we're back, and this time we've got two guests and a new co-host. Dr. Eric Capio is going to serve in the co-pilot seat on this one. My two guests are Isis Trujillo and Evan Pauls. And Isis, this is not your first time working with us before. I think you've been at the Real Science Exchange before a couple years. No, it might have been pre-COVID even.
Pre-COVID,
Yeah, so welcome back. It's good to have you here. Isis, would you mind kind of just start us off by giving us an overview of the presentation that you gave yesterday?
Yeah, of course. Well, first, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure for me. Um, Yesterday, I talked about how important is choline during pregnancy, and mostly I focus on brain development and eye development, and I share some of our findings in how important is when a pregnant woman is taking enough choline.
That was interesting. The one thing I hadn't heard before was about the eye development. So what's unique about the eye that's different than the brain that allows that helps with eye development and choline?
Well, actually, it's the cells are coming from the same origin. So brain and eye are gonna develop from the same cells.
Okay.
So basically, we found this eye development to be happening more or less at the same time that the cerebral cortex, that is the top part of our brains, and we saw that actually the neurons in our eyes that are receiving the light and connecting to the rest of our brain are also very important to receive enough choline.
Okay. Let me ask you this: is it only allocated to the brain, or can it help with other organs as well as they develop?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and we are not sure yet, but we think that it may have an effect on liver. But I think Evan can talk more about that in adults, but in embryonic development, we think that probably it will have some effect in the liver.
Yeah. So that's a great segue to Evan. Evan, give us kind of an overview of your presentation, and then, if you will, kind of talk about liver development.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me here. So my presentation focused primarily on looking at this intersection between choline availability and obesity, and specifically the manifestations of some of the associated chronic disease states that we see with obesity, and really trying to get to an understanding of can choline and its metabolites help ameliorate some of the symptomologies of obesity. And one of the main ones that we are focusing on right now is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or just fatty liver disease. And so at least with respect to liver development, although I focus more on the adult side, and we know it's very, very well documented that giving choline to someone who is deficient in it really helps ameliorate that fatty liver. In development, we know that at least I think there's been a lot of evidence on specifically for the mother, in which if she's not supplied a sufficient amount of choline, not only is she donating a lot of her own stores of choline to the fetus so that it can develop properly, but also she's put at a much higher risk of developing fatty liver. So I think that's a really interesting area, and really needs a lot of focus to make sure that everyone has enough choline in their diet.
So Isis, what I love about your work is it feels like in choline for so long it's been a little bit of a situation where the mechanism is described as, there's sort of inadequate choline epigenetics, and then some problem occurs, right? But you've really shed a lot of light on that, particularly as it relates to brain and eye development. So can you maybe walk us through, kind of a high level of what you found in these last, 2-3 years about the mechanism of how choline deficiency can impact brain development?
Yeah, actually, what we found is that the stem cells of the brain, and these are very particular cells that are going to give rise to neurons, to all the types of cells in the brain, are very sensitive to choline availability. So what we found is that if we don't have enough choline, if a mother is not eating enough choline, these cells in the baby brain are not proliferating enough. So basically, the mom needs to eat enough for the baby to build a better brain. And then these cells are going to proliferate, have a really good pool of this number of cells, and they are gonna become neurons eventually. So part of what actually was also his dissertation was to find what was happening, how choline was making those cells to proliferate more. And we found that it's through microRNA, that it's a small RNA that does fine-tuning regulation, and that is what is regulating this pool of stem cells.
So interesting. And so I think another message that I learned about the conference overall, but especially I think both of your sections, was that it's not just important for expecting moms. I mean, there is a significant role of choline as we age. So, Evan, for your work especially, this interaction between obesity and choline deficiency and choline levels, I mean, could you sort of elaborate on that and how that interplay might impact specific aspects of health?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the big things that we're really focused on, and at least we see emerging in our work, is that this idea of lean mass and fat mass. Excuse me. And so we know as we age, one of the large concerns is loss of lean muscle mass. And so one of the things that we've seen, particularly in preclinically in males, is that we have this loss of lean mass in these preclinical models that aren't consuming a sufficient amount of choline. And so particularly in our older population and as we age, we're starting to think that perhaps making sure that we have sufficient amounts of choline, perhaps having fairly high levels of choline intake may help prevent that loss of lean mass.
Wow. So one of the goals that we've had for this conference overall is trying to create just short messages that we can sort of communicate externally. So maybe what we can do is, Isis, if you wouldn't mind giving a 2 to 3 sentence summary of just kind of what the state of the union is as it relates to choline in early life nutrition, and perhaps Evan, you could do the same for, let's just call it adult nutrition overall.
I will say that if a woman is planning to get pregnant or is pregnant, needs to eat enough choline to make a baby with better cognition. That will be a very straightforward recommendation. The other thing is that it's important to consider also during nursing or lactation to keep consuming choline, because the development of the baby even occurs baby's brain occurs after birth. So keeping the breast milk with enough amounts of choline is going to be very important.
Of course.
I think one of the really interesting things that I didn't touch on too much in my talk, but I had in sort of the backslides a little bit. A lot of evidence is emerging that, what is a diet to maintain health, right? And so a lot of people are looking for a lot of, perhaps you could say quick fixes, but ultimately there is nothing that is going to outweigh a healthy lifestyle, and really what we think of is really high diet quality. And so we are surrounded in an environment of a lot of processed and ultra processed foods. And so what we really need to focus on is just having a really high diet quality and ensuring that we get that high quality, and that high quality diet is including choline, because choline is a part of that really high quality diet.
Exactly. I think that's what I love about nutrition overall, is there's love and hate, is that there's just 100 boxes that you need to check in order to live that optimal lifestyle. Choline, of course, is an incredibly important part, but it's part of this bigger picture of overall health and diet, and I think you captured that really well, so thank you.
Yeah. I want to thank both of you for joining us today. I failed to mention early on that you're both employees of University of North Carolina here with the Nutrition Research Institute. I believe, Isis, you're a researcher and you're a postdoc, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us today. This has been great. Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.